Hey, how you doing, everybody out there? Thank y'all for tapping in. Today is a wonderful day at Square Room Magazine, your cousin Chief, and I have the honor of having this gentleman on the platform with me, the one and only legendary. When I say legendary, y'all don't understand. Legendary John Davis in the building. John, how you doing today, bro?
Not doing too bad today, bro. Thanks for having me. I greatly appreciate it.
We appreciate you. You know, for those who don't know who you are, this is Action Jack. It's not that guy that fought against Rocky or that you see with the Afro. This man is not only a boxer, he's a trainer, he's a menace and a defensive genius in boxing. Uh, John has represented several fighters. He has proven himself as a fighter and gladiator in the sports of boxing, and now is turning the leaf and on a whole new page and a lot of stuff to come. So, John, just a quick opener. To ask you this, where are you from? Where did you grow up at?
Well, I was born in Denver, Colorado, but raised in Seattle, Washington.
What got you into boxing? What motivated you to get in the boxing arena?
Man, it's a crazy story. I'll tell you what happened, man. One day, a friend of mine, we were walking home from school, and he said,
Mhm.
"Let's go play basketball." I said, "Yeah, no problem. Let's do that." So, but in order to get to the basketball gym, you had to go to the boxing gym. We're in the boxing gym. He said, "Hey, man, let's try it." So he gets in the ring with somebody and beats the crap out of him. I get in the ring with somebody else, man. They beat the crap out of me. But I ran home. I loved it. I told my dad my nose was all bloody. I told my father I was boxing today. He walked me back down to it's called the Marshall White Center. It was in Ogden, Utah, of all places. And he walked me back down there and had the coach told the coach, "Listen, my son can box, but he can't get back in the ring until you teach him how to box properly." So for the next 6 weeks, the trainer, my coach, just trained me how to box before I get back in the ring. But I loved it, man. I got my butt kicked and I loved it. Don't ask me why.
Well, maybe John, you like to get your lick back or pass the first lick. You know, that was a way to do without getting in trouble. You know, I
Yeah.
like playing football because that was the only sport that I can do where you can hit somebody every play and not get in trouble for it. But you could also take a lick if you're not prepared and looking around.
Oh yeah, you're right about that, bro. Yeah.
So, but then getting trained to be a boxer, what was your first match like? Who was the first guy you fought and what was it like? Do you remember your first match?
I remember the first match. I can't remember the guy's name, but ironically, my very first match, I fought the guy in the Golden Gloves that kicked my butt in the sparring session, my first sparring session. So he was the first guy I met in the tournament, and I lit him up, But it was it was like 5 months later at the Golden Gloves, and he didn't. He thought I was the same guy he met the first day we sparred. So I couldn't wait. I couldn't wait for the revenge to get him back. But that was my first fight in boxing. Was a guy that beat me up in my first sparring session.
Wow, that's amazing. I mean, I'm seeing this guy probably size you up like, yeah, that's a little smart kid guy in the ring. I had to give him snaps, and he ended up receiving them.
Yeah, yeah. He didn't realize a totally different story because I hadn't seen him after that first sparring session. I didn't see him any longer. I guess he must have moved or went back to where he was from, and then we met up in the Golden Gloves, and it was a different story that night.
Oh man, that's amazing. So, from going to being 1-0 after becoming an amateur and getting introduced and baptized in boxing, how long was your amateur before you became professional?
I turned amateur. I started boxing in 1972. Um, so I turned pro 12 years later. Yeah, 84, 1984. So I
How,
stayed amateur for 12 years.
about how many amateur fights did you have?
It's crazy. I didn't really keep count until I lost my first amateur fight, and that was like probably 5 years went by. I had roughly about 100 amateur fights before then, but when I started counting, I won 100, I won 100 and 195, and I lost six, so 201 fights that I counted. But I probably had like, believe it or not, like 100 before then, but I never started counting until I lost my first fight.
And when you became professional, what was the first professional fight like? I mean, was it local? You had to travel. How long did you train?
No, when I turned pro, I moved from Seattle, Washington to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. well, under the tutelage of Georgie Benton, one of the greatest trainers of all time. Um, so I moved there in January of '84, and my first pro fight was March. I want to say March 17th. I may be wrong. Might be I think it might be 24th. Anyway, it's one of those two dates. And it was a totally different atmosphere because now you got on 8-ounce gloves. Back then they were 8-ounce gloves and no headgear. And you find a guy across from you getting paid, but you find a guy across from you got no headgear, you got 8-ounce gloves on. And when I first got my gloves on, and the commissioner gave me my gloves, I said, "Man, I can't wear these." He said, "Why not? Your opponent is." I said, "Okay, give me these gloves back." 'Cause I thought we were gonna fight like in 10 or 12-ounce gloves. And to fight in 8-ounce gloves, they're real small. And you feel the impact of the punch a whole lot better. So first fight was a guy named Kim Brady Carricker was his name, from Philadelphia. That was the first time and last time I seen or heard of him. But it was my first fight. I think I stopped him in the first round.
So you said amateur, you guys fight in heavy in more padded gloves, and
Yes.
professional the gloves are smaller.
Yeah, well, now they're 10-ounce, but when I was fighting, they were 8-ounce, and sometimes you see guys fighting 6-ounce gloves, which is crazy. But I never fought. I fought the lowest I fought was 8-ounce.
That's almost bare knuckle.
Yeah, bro. Especially those 6-ounce gloves. I couldn't believe cats, were fighting gloves like that. But there was a time when they did.
That's amazing. So when you became professional, you want to know 1-0. How long did it take you to realize that? Okay, I've been a novice for 12 years. I'm did my professional debut. I have arrived, and I'm about to conquer and kick ass. When did you feel that you needed that was your calling?
Well, believe it or not, actually, it was in the amateurs. When I started taking trips overseas and going to different countries, and fighting different opponents in their country and beating them in their homeland, I knew turning pro was my thing. That was eventually what I would do. I envisioned myself becoming champion one day, and I realized that dream. It was just something that I knew that I wanted to do. There was nothing else. Once I started boxing, there was nothing else that I wanted to do. And I played basketball, I played football, I played baseball, but boxing was my love. And once I started boxing, that was it. I gave up all of the sports and concentrated just on boxing.
Let me ask you this $1 million question. Would you allow your kids to box, and would you train them or allow somebody else to train them?
I didn't, I have 3 sons, and I didn't want them to fight. But this crazy thing is now, my youngest son is 25. Now he wants to fight all of a sudden. So I didn't want, but to answer your question, I didn't want them to do. I didn't want them to go through what I went through, because boxing, even though it seemed like it's glamorous, there's a lot of crap that goes with it, and I didn't want them to go through that stuff. To me, they didn't have to, because their lifestyle was a whole lot better than mine was growing up, and they didn't have to want for anything. They never missed it. They never missed a meal in their lives, which I'm happy. They told me that. I was happy for that. They had a great life. But when my youngest son said, "I want to box," I looked at him like he's crazy. I said, "Man, why'd you wait so late?" I mean, they knew. The thing was, they would go to the gym with me during the summer, and they would train, and they knew all the fighters. They knew how to fight, because I let them spar, but I just didn't want them to box. So when my son came to me and said, "I want to box," I looked at him like he was crazy. But I said, "Really? At this stage of your life, you want to box?" So right now, he hasn't fought. I'm trying to get him. Once I leave camp with Clarissa here, I'm going to look for him for a fight, because they can fight. I just didn't want that. I didn't want him to do that. So what I'm going to try to do for him is get him some celebrity fights, fight some other celebrity kids, and see what he can do with that. Not really fight, but if he can make some money at that, do that, because that's how this world's going with social media and stuff. If you build your social media, you make a ton of money without really fighting anybody. Because I don't want him to box, but if he can do that celebrity thing with the kids, that's great.
So, as you've become a professional fighter, what do you think was like maybe your hardest fight to train for and your hardest match? Who gave you the most competition in the ring?
Believe it or not, man, it's when I won my second world title, my middleweight title. I fought a gentleman named Reggie Johnson. Reggie was a hell of a fighter. He was a southpaw like me, and that was the most difficult fight in my mind that I ever thought I would have, because Reggie could fight. Reggie was a hell of a boxer. It wasn't until the last night I laid up in bed and said, you know what, I got this, man. Let me not worry about this guy. And I took him to school and won the title. He was my most difficult because I made it that way in my mind. He could box. Um, the hardest fight I ever had was against a kid named Kim. Was against a guy named Sidney Outlaw from Philadelphia. I fought him for the Pennsylvania State Junior Middleweight Championship. And I stopped him in the 5th round, but that was one hard fight because from opening bell, this brother came. He was on me like white on rice. I had to get him off me. This cat could fight, and I stopped him in the 5th round. But it was one of the best fights that people would never see because it wasn't televised. But I have the film of it. Well, I have it on CD. So, but it was a hell of a fight. It was a guy who gave me like my hardest battle. It was life and death for him also because I guess being from North Philly, he was just proud to be a Philadelphia fighter. He wanted to prove he was the best, and I beat him that night. But that was a tough fight for me.
Okay, that's excellent, man. So, underestimating him and coming in and becoming victorious, but did that change you and get you back on your basic and foundations, how to prepare for people, not underestimate people?
Well,
Or
no, I never underestimated him. Trust me, I trained hard for that fight, bro. Because I knew going in, even though I felt I was a better fighter, I knew he could fight. So I never underestimated him. It was just he was just a hard fight. That's all that was. He came to fight, and luckily I was prepared physically and mentally because I definitely, I needed that. And that was always my way anyway. It was just a tough fight, and he made me realize, brother, all the fights gonna be like this because he wanted it just as bad as I wanted it. Luckily, I was a better fighter that night.
learning a lot right here. So let me ask you this: with your experience in boxing and over the years, right now, you were a novelist beginner for 12 years, becoming a professional. You know the assignment. You're executing, uh, traveling to different countries and fighting people. At this point in your career, okay, you on track to be a champion. What advice would you give somebody that's starting out boxing and it may not be 1-0, maybe 0-4? What
Yeah.
advice?
Well, if you're on 4, bro, you got problems. Trust me. um, yeah, I might tell to retire if you're on 4.
I mean, seriously, I mean, you can't blame it on the coach because the coach don't take the hits, the coach don't do the workout, the coach only give you so much guidance. I mean, maybe you need a trainer, maybe you need to rethink things, maybe you need to
No,
take yourself to quit.
you hit it right in the head. Maybe you need to rethink things. Listen, real early in life, especially about anything you do, you can tell if you're going to make it or not. It's a rarity, but it does happen that a person starts out with a bad record that can come back and become a world champion. So it's not out of question. It's just that how bad does that person really want it? I had a friend named was Freddie Pendleton. Freddie started out, man, his record was terrible. I mean, when he finally the last time I remember, I think it was like 6 wins and 8 losses, something like that. And they put him on TV against Roger Mayweather, and he knocked Roger out on ESPN, and they got him back in the game. He went on to become world champion. But right before he won the world's title, he was like 14-13, or his closest were almost even. But he proved beyond a shadow of a doubt that you can make it if you really put your heart and effort into this game. And so I can't, I shouldn't say that you can't make it with the 0-4 record, but it takes a special person to want to come back from that and really be, hungry and strong and want to make it and win. So it would depend on the individual and what does he really want to do with it. I had to ask him how bad do you want this?
I mean, nobody wants to get beat up on. That I know of. So, to me, I mean, I think after the first loss, I would have to say, hey, is this what I want to do? I didn't train to come last in the Olympics. I didn't train to be laid out and take a lap in the middle of the ring. We had to be second. If I lost the second time, coach, seriously, what am I doing wrong? I mean, let's be honest. Do I really have this in me? I mean, do I really have a shot? I have to question my guidance and my commitment. And then I have to look into myself, because a lot of times people want to be in denial. And sometimes we got to own what we're doing. It's like, am I taking this serious? I mean, in any sport, no matter what it is, people always want to blame somebody.
Yeah,
And when you're boxing, and then the thing about boxing, there's only one person you blame is a person that's taking the punches or dodging the punches. If you're not dodging the punches and you're receiving them, that's on you.
that's
Did you
right.
did you really train? Did you really prepare? Did you really stay away from the women? Did you really do your diet? Did you really do all the running that you claimed that you did? I mean,
Yeah,
you got to prepare, and you can't pass the buck.
no,
No matter how good of a coach you have in your corner, the coach cannot take the lick and to deliver the blow. You have to do it. You have to
yeah.
own it.
No,
So,
I agree with you 110%. No, most fighters, that's what they want to do. They want to blame somebody else but themselves rather than blame themselves. They want to blame everybody else for their defeat.
and it's funny because even in today, I just read somebody just fired a coach and hired a coach. That no matter how good or bad you think a coach is, he or she is not in the ring with you. You got to own your stuff, uh, move away the distractions, and be focused on your craft and your goal. If this is what you want to do, in life, we got a million things that we can use. Why we don't do things? But there's only one reason why we can come up with things we want to do. We want to, and we get it done. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah,
and
you're right.
saying, like I'm saying, with that in mind, so somebody came to you on the train and they got all these excuses, like you said, I'm not the coach for you, this ain't the sport for you. But if somebody constantly trying and giving it their heart and their arm, then like I guess you said right, that the record wouldn't be on four, maybe one, maybe 1-1, you
Yeah,
know.
yeah. No, I hear you. Yeah, I, I get that a lot sometimes. Somebody come to the gym, he says, "I want to be a boxer." So I put him. I say, "Okay, have you ever fought before?" He might say, "No." That's a red flag right there. But I said, "Get in the ring." I say, first show me shadow box. Show me how you fight. Show me, right? I can tell you right away if they have no style. Listen, you wasting your own time. You're not wasting mine. So go do something different. It depends what you want, what you got up in here. How bad do you want this? Some guys may can't do it in the beginning, but if you teach them properly, they might make something of this. I don't want to turn anybody away, but if I see that there's no hope from jump, I let you know right away. No, go do something different, or find another coach that's willing to work with you. Because
Because
if I don't,
sometimes they don't want to box, they want to defend themselves, and they think they
okay,
want.
I
Maybe
can
they
I can teach you that. I can teach you that, but let me know how sincere you are about that.
get information. So let me ask you this: when did you know that it was time to give it up toward the end of your career? When did you say, I got one more fight in me, I got 5 more fights, and this
Yeah.
is my last fight? When did you know the end was coming or the end was there?
Oh, my situation was different than most guys because when I decided to retire, it wasn't because I was getting beat up or anything like that. I couldn't get fights. I would I'll give you an incident. When I was with Don King Productions, I went to his the person that did most of his business. Her name was Dana Jameson. So I went to her office one day and I was like pissed off. I said, "Hey, listen, I'm not getting any fights with you guys." She said, "John, do me a favor." She said, "I want you to sit down and just be quiet." She made 6 phone calls, three middleweight champions and three super middleweight champions. That's 8 pounds heavy, 168. And she called each person. She called the manager or the promoter of these fighters, of these champions. Each one turned me down. And each time she said, "Just be quiet." She would always wave her hand. She said, "Don't say a word." So after the sixth person, she said, "John, see, that's the problem we have with you. Nobody wants to fight you." She said, "You're too dangerous, and you're not going to bring enough money to the table." So right then and there, I knew that for me to get fights at that level was going to be tough. So I stepped back and so my wife said, she said, "You're not fighting anymore." I said, "What for?" I said, "I don't have a record. My record, my final record was 36-4. I didn't want to. I had a friend named Livingston Bramble, passed away. God bless his soul. He was champion. He won his title in '84. He beat Ray Mancini. But when he retired from boxing, his record was like 41-41. Now, more you see most guys, you say that's a bum. Because that record's terrible. The thing was, my point is, after he lost his title, he would take fights just for the money. Didn't matter where. If he took a fight, he was on the B side. So for him to win, it would take a miracle because they weren't trying to, give him this money for the win. So he took the fights for the money, just for the money, but not for the victory. And I told my wife, I don't want to be that kind of guy. I don't have a record, down the road 36 and 41 or something, you're gonna say you're a bum. Get out the, get out the gym. Or who's gonna really respect me as a trainer when I got more losses than wins on my record? It don't work out, and so I told my wife, I said, I'm not gonna belittle myself and stoop down to that level and just for the fight, just for the money. And back then they were decent paydays, 20,000, 30,000, but I didn't want that. I said I'm not gonna belittle my record and all the things I've done in boxing just for the money. And she couldn't understand that in the beginning, but she realized as time went on. You think about it, I can still walk and talk today. When I talk to you, you understand what I'm saying. I'm not mumbling, stumbling my words. I'm still able to talk. I said, had I taken all these fights that I was offered, who knows how I would be today? Because a lot of guys, unfortunately for them, they get into a position where they need the money, and they just take these fights, not realizing what's going to happen down the road to them. With their mental makeup, they just take the fights just because they need that money. And I told my wife, I'm not going to do that to myself. I'm not going to belittle myself just for the money because we need it to hurt myself later on down the road, and which a lot of guys do because they need that money.
No, that's a good point to do, and show that you know what you're talking about. Is proving. We're honored to have you here today, and also on the cover that's coming out this weekend, hot off the press, Square Ring Magazine. With no fear. This is your cover up here. We have up here to the right,
Yes.
John David, boxing trainer. Speaking of boxing trainer, who are some of the people you're training right now? You're working with?
Clarissa Shields. She has a fight July 29th, 26th here in Detroit. Training young kid from Canada, Page. I can't pronounce his last name, so I don't want to chop it up because I'll mess it up. But he's a 115 pounder, highly good fighter. Should be champion within about 2 or 3 years. I have a kid named he's from Russia named Ali Ismailov, number one contender for the light heavyweight title. He's having problems. He's just having problems getting out of Russia right now. Come back to America to start training. So once he gets that straightened out, his visa and the passport, we got to get him ready for his title shot that will probably be coming within the next 6 to 8 months. I have a couple of young up and coming fighters also that I'm dealing with, and that's mainly who it is. I just got my stable's not as big right now, but that's okay. I like it that way.
And John, I mean, you you set new parameters, man, to whatever you do, bro. I mean, shout out to you. Much respect. I mean, coming in fighting, fearless, people refuse to fight you. And then I'm looking at, Clarissa is one of your proteges and fighters you're training. She is fearless, man. This woman has done MMA. She's doing 3 Olympic medals. She's champion several weight categories, constantly fighting, challenge everybody to fight, not afraid to. She's not dodging or dodging any matches. I mean, she's taking them all head on, and you
Yeah.
guys are constantly successful. There was one fight she had. I forgot who it was because I'm a Clarissa fan, and the lady knocked her down. I'm like, oh hell no! But she got back up and
Yeah.
looked at you. I'm serious. She looked at you when she was knocked down, and you looked at her like nodded your head, and y'all got back in sync without really saying nothing. And she was victorious in the fight. So you guys got a chemistry, you got a plan, and I'd love to see it, man. I was shocked in her last the fight when she fought Perkins. I'm like, that is a big girl, and we
Yeah,
interviewed.
brother.
That's a big girl. I'm like,
Yeah.
she's gonna pull this off. And the prelim fights when they tug of war over the belt and everything. I'm like, oh, that girl's strong. But Chris held her on. She said she was gonna win. She knew the assignment, she completed it, and I'm like, hey, this girl continue to write her story.
Yeah. No. Listen, she's a wonderful person. Hell of a boxer. I told her one day, we were working one day, and I said, I'm gonna tell you something, Doc. I said, don't get mad, don't take this the wrong way. I said, but what separates you from all other females in boxing? I said, you fight like a dude. I said, you fight like a man. You got the style, you fight just I said, if you fight like a man, and I said, that works for you. I said, I don't see a female today or before you that fights the way you do. I said, you fight like a man. You have a style, I said, you fight, you have the style. And I said, and now that you're moving up in weight, I said, you're not killing yourself, so you're stronger. You're gonna start knocking these girls out. I said, when she fought at middleweight, junior middleweight, she was losing weight, so it would rob her of her strength. But now, even though she's fighting heavyweight, she doesn't walk around the heavyweight. She walks around like 175. So but she's still, even though she's fighting heavyweights, now she's not starting to knock him down and knock him out because she has that strength that she's been robbing herself of, trying to make these lower weights. But now that she's there where she belongs, I said you're going to be surprised how many girls you start knocking out with one punch, because now you're carrying your full strength with you. You're not trying to kill yourself to make these lower weights. And now she's starting to really believe me because she sees it now. She sees that the power is there, that she thought she might, for some reason, she thought she was going to lose it moving up in weight. But I said, no, you're going to carry that power with you because you're not robbing yourself of your strength by losing the weight the last few days before a fight. And she's more comfortable now at the heavyweight division, because she can walk around weighing about 179 the way what she does, without having to worry about losing weight or gaining weight. And she's still strong when she gets into a fight. But I told her, I said, your blessing, I said, believe it or not, your blessing in life is that you were blessed to fight like a man. I said, you have that style. Everything a man does is what you do. I said, don't take it wrong. It's a blessing for you because most girls don't fight the way you fight. She was cool with that.
Now, I noticed that one of the guys that you trained, and we had him here at Score Magazine. Matter of fact, he was our very first cover page. He's in a similar boat that you in, where he's dedicated, he's on mission, and it's hard to get fights. What is it like frustrating when don't nobody want to fight? I mean, how you constantly prepare when everybody's scared to take the challenge?
Yeah, it's rough because sometimes if you're not strong mentally, you believe the things that people say about you. But here's a kid who's his natural ability. He can punch at his weight. He can box at his weight, and he's smart mentally. So you know, he just has to just bid his time and keep winning fights, and eventually it'll click for him, and he'll find the right person that's going to get him either a champion and say, I'll fight him, or he works his way up to number one and gets that title shot. It's just that when he's blessed with those kind of skills and ability, you have to be mentally strong to be able to withstand some of the crap that you might have to go through because you're gonna be avoided. And if you don't sign with a major promoter, then they don't want you in the game because if they can't control you, they don't want you around. But all they do is keep winning. He'll get there. Some promoter will eventually say, you know what, I got to sign this kid, and he better get his title shot because he's about Page is about a year and a half away from a real title shot. He just got to learn a few more things. I mean, he can box. Don't get me wrong. He's a hell of a fighter, and he can only get better. Just take his time and do what he has to do to make himself a better fighter. And when he fights for the title, the thing is, you don't want to just fight for it. You want to win it because the money is not in winning the title. It's when you start defending that title. The more you defend it, the more money you make. You win it one time, you lose at your next fight. Now you got to get back in line. But the thing is, you don't want to just win it. You want to keep it and defend it for as long as you can. And that's what he has that ability to do that.
You talk to Page, he sound like a champion. He sounds like he's the heart and I would like to see him fight more at that weight class before he steps up because the weight class is that he's dominating. I would love to see him capture some more belts.
Yeah, I think as time moves along, he will. The more he's seen by the public, he'll get there. Sometimes it just takes time. But luckily for him, he's still young, so that helps him out.
So that's phase 2. Now, phase 3, I'm hearing talks about a television show, man. How are we going to pull this off? Training, boxer trainer, coach. Now, talk show, Coach's Corner. What can we look for with that, man? What are we looking for? What can we expect from Coach's Corner?
Well, in Coach's Corner, I'm going to try to, from my point of view, from my side, I want to bring some of the older fighters, back, talk to them, the ones that people may not have heard about as much or know that much about. Good fighters that they have life struggles. Whether it's a good struggle or bad struggle. I want them to hear what guys went through in boxing. If they didn't make it, I still want to put you on and get you a little notoriety and see, just tell the people your story of what boxing was like, because it's not always glamorous. I mean, don't get me wrong, Ray Leonard had a great career. Oscar De La Hoya had a great career. These guys, they were gold medalists, and they took that gold medal and they got their worth out of it. But not every fighter does that. You got fighters who do. who don't make it sometimes, and you want to know these struggles. A guy like Iran Barkley, here's a guy that won 3 world titles, but he had to go through hell to get him. He had to fight. He had to fight the toughest guys in his division to get those titles. And that's far cry from what a Ray Leonard did or Oscar De La Hoya did, because they had the gold medal. Their life was easier. I want people to hear about the stories of some of these guys who had the harder road to get to where they got to, but they got there, and just how hard was it to get there? Because it wasn't glamorous. A lot of guys had to go through a lot. Me myself, I had to go through a lot of crap just to get to my world titles, man. I had to fight promoters and managers just to get ready to get to. It wasn't glamorous. So when I got there, it was a tough road. And there's a lot of guys out there with stories like mine or even greater. And I want people to hear their stories, from my side of the venue when I had them on the show.
So, with this in mind, if I wanted to get you to train me and I'm a boxer and I think I got what it takes, how could one reach out to you? Or how do one get the opportunity to try to be a part of the arsenal?
I think the best way that you could do that in today's society would go on social media, and it would be Instagram, because I have Instagram page there, and most people that reach out to me, that's where they hit me at. You can hit me on WhatsApp, but I think Instagram has been the most successful one for most people that reach out to me, because that's the one I guess that I look at the most on a daily basis.
What about the number that we have at the bottom of your ad up here? Can they reach you by that as well? And the email address?
Yeah, you can reach me. You can reach me at that address, at that number. I'm sorry.
Got to make it a little easy for you, Coach.
There you go.
And as usual, John, I mean, it's a pleasure to have you here, bro, to sit down and fellowship and converse with you. I enjoy working with you and letting the public know what to expect from coming up. They was mesmerized with you as a fighter. We're constantly being mesmerized and watching the craftsmanship of the fighters that you train, the success that you're having. Next, the television coach's corner, man, I can't wait, man. It's just so much action. The story's constantly being written, and your tell-all story, man, that's going to be very interesting. After we put all the pieces together.
I appreciate that, brother. Yeah. I like the show, and I look forward to it, because what I want to do is I just want to be truthful. I want to be truthful with the fans. I want them to hear not just the glamorous sides of boxing, but the sides that were, sometimes not so good for the fighter. I mean, because every fighter didn't have a glamorous road in boxing, even though a lot of them became champion. That's a great thing at the end, is that you realize your potential, your full potential. But a lot of guys, the way they got there, it was a rough road. And I like for the younger kids to hear that, because it lets them know that, you know what, you can be anything you want to be in life. And these guys went through the pain and suffering that they went through and still became world champions. You can do it yourself. No matter what sport, what you're in life, as long as you believe in yourself and you go ahead and give it your all, 110%, you can make it.
And I agree with that 120%. Like I said, myself and the staff at Square Ring Magazine, we appreciate you, brother. Can't wait for this issue to drop this weekend. And is there anything else you want to tell the people that's tapped in or listening or will watch this when they check out your cover story in the magazine?
Like I said, if you're a fighter, or and not even me, but if you're a fighter who has potential and you believe you can make it, if I can't train you, I'll lead you to the right person. Just hit me up on Instagram, either John David Jackson 63 or Action Jackson Boxing on Instagram, and either one, I'll guide you to the right. If I can't do it for you, I'll guide you to the right person that's gonna get you to where you need to be. And that's I appreciate the chance for me to say that. Boxing it's a rough sport. It's not, believe it or not, it's not as rough as it used to be in my era, because these guys don't fight each other. The number one fighters don't fight each other, on a daily basis. They fight every blue moon. They want to fight somebody that's not even on their level, but they want to make the money. So,
boxing matches like once a year, once in 2 years. I remember it's like every quarter. When Tyson came out, he was fighting like every other month, every 3-4 months. I mean, it's like, let's go. That was boxing exciting. You know what? Somebody asked, I don't need to ask you. Somebody just asked me an hour ago, who's the heavyweight champion? And I don't even know. Who's the heavyweight champion right now?
It's a kid from Ukraine. His name is Usyk. I can't Usyk. I can't remember. I can't the first name. I can't even pronounce it. His last name is Usyk. He's a hell of a fighter. He's champion right now. Well, he's one of. Let me see. He's a WB. I believe he's WBA champion. But the thing is, there's so many belts right now, man. There's more than one champion. See, that's the problem with boxing nowadays. It's there's so many belts. There's so many belts that it's hard to say who the real champion is. And even though they're champions, they don't fight each other to unify the belt and have one champion. And that's the problem with boxing today. You get multi multi champions and multi divisions, and no one knows who is who. And the best don't fight the best, so you never really can say, "Well, I'm the undisputed world champion." And until they do that, it just makes confusion for the fans to see who the best is, because the best don't fight the best like they should.
How you think? What do you think is going to happen to the sport? I'm hearing that the people in Dubai are trying to come up with their own league. If they're successful with that, do you think it's going to make the box better, or is it going to dilute and make it weaker?
It's gonna make it better and weaker. Reason why I say that, because it's gonna make it better. What they're trying to do is they're trying to cut out all these sanctioning bodies. And here's the problem with the sanctioning bodies: they don't do the things they say they're gonna do for fighters. It's like, and I tell people, 2 years ago I wasn't doing so well, so I wrote the WBA. I called the WBA and the IBO. I was their champion, and they took money from my title every time I defended my title, and I need a little bit of help. I called them and was, hey, can you help me? They said no. We help people on their deathbed. I said, well, brother, if I'm in the streets, I'll be on my deathbed soon, man. I said, but they, you take this. Here's my concern. They take this money from us. Okay, what do you do with it? 'Cause if we need some of it, you don't help us. You don't help us out, but you make money off those belts. Trust me. So with this new league, I think they're gonna try to cut all that out. In this league thing, they're gonna fight for the Ring Magazine title, which is a prestigious title within itself, because a lot of great champions have worn it. So that's nice. And see, the Ring Magazine belt, you have no sanctioning fee, so you ain't got to pay. You ain't got to worry about paying for this belt. See, all these other, the WBA, BO, IBF, they all want money, but when you need help as a fighter, they don't want to help you.
That's great for the fighter and the longevity, and everybody needs some help in the end, man.
Yeah,
We never know what tomorrow brings. We only know where we are today. So
that's true.
they're going to really help them, because they're not only helping the sports, they're helping themselves out at the same time. But when the fighter's no longer able to compete, they need to help out.
Yeah.
They're trying to help them out.
And not one sanctioned body does that. They all claim that they're down for the fighters, but no. When push comes to shove, and you need help, unless you're on your deathbed, man, listen, it's too late. Listen, when I'm on my deathbed, but it's too late to help me out. What you gonna, so I need help before that time. But that's the problem with boxing. So to answer your question though, this new league, it's gonna be a boxing league, and they're gonna have just the Ring Magazine belt. And so they're gonna cut out all the other sanctioned bodies. So they're gonna be pissed off. But boxing will still be around, because they'll have their own thing still going on. But it won't be as great as it once was, because a lot of good fighters are gonna go to this league also.
Well, it's going to also pull an international pool of fighters together. So you're going to see people that you probably never would have got the opportunity to see as well.
Exactly. Yeah, definitely. So it'd be interesting. We just have to see how it plays out. But will it hurt boxing? It'll hurt these sanctioning bodies. But if they do it the right way, it won't hurt boxing, because all these guys will have to fight each other that you don't see fighting each other today.
So that they're going to really stir up the pot. It's going to really get interesting.
Yeah.
So that sounds all good all the way around. Only difference is, we won't be able to drive to a city to watch a fight. You have to get overseas and get on a plane, but you'll be able to have some great matches. And I mean, pay-per-view going to love it, because they're going to sell those tickets and make them.
Definitely.
Once again, John, I'd like to thank you so much, man, for giving us your time and commitment and coming on board. And congratulations again for being the cover story for Square Ring Magazine. Thank you so much, brother.
My pleasure. Thank you once again. I appreciate, all your efforts, man. So we definitely got to do it again in the near future.
Yeah. Right on, man. You have a blessed day. Thank y'all. If you guys want to get a hold of John David, hit us up. We had the number and the email on the screen, and you can always catch him on Square Ring Magazine. Check it out this weekend. Coming live to you. Y'all have a blessed day.